there's a fair amount of music promotion strategy that's essentially boiled down to make viral videos. And that's not a strategy. People get tired of seeing the same attempts at going viral. In this day and age, nobody wants somebody who's gunning for the viral moment, gunning for it constantly. They want authenticity rather than trying to catch up with the trend that happened a month ago, actively putting out.
Hello and welcome back to Sound Advice. I'm joined this week by Guy. How are you, mate?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. It's really good to have you on the show. So, do you want to just introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a musician in New York for a long time, and very recently I started making, videos on music trends, from a lot of conversations that I was having, with musicians in the area and things that were happening online. Fun fact, my wife is a trend forecaster who's also, online, and I learned a lot about what I do from her process. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So, you said it kind of came from I was gonna say what made you interested in covering music trends, but it kind of came from those conversations with musicians about these broader topics.
Yeah, I've always been like the opinionated guy in my friend group. And that has always transferred to music. But most recently, I think it's kind of been, looking for things that I can kind of tap into and talk about and discuss and bring to the table. Kind of the approach that I take is, finding things that are interesting to me, and then, just kind of, talking about them and exposing them and exposing in a positive way, but, bringing them to different people's audiences. Originally, I had an idea for a YouTube series where I would kind of delve into these micro online communities. Because, for example, I'm also a chess player, and I was thinking about making a short video on chess drama because there's so much chess drama. And then, obviously it kept going back to music. So I was like, maybe I should just start with making some music trends contents and, cultural analysis and everything. And there's been a lot to talk about recently, and I think there's always a lot to talk about. So,
Yeah.
there you go.
Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to dive into we've got a few different sort of trends of 2024 and going forward in music that we're going to sort of talk about. And so I've got a little list here. So the first thing that I had written down, which you've done a video on before, but is sort of the idea of sped up songs. So
Yeah.
now sped up songs have obviously been around for a little while now, but can you kind of explain the origins of that trend and how sped up songs have sort of become such a big thing?
Yeah, I mean the that kind of thing goes back to the 70s and 80s with some DJs just doing that in, all over the world, really. It's not a novel idea per se, but I think the most popular iteration of what we have now was nightcore in the 90s, early 2000s. They were remixing emo songs, and basically, I think we've all heard it. It's the Chippendale kind of voice, or the Alvin and the Chipmunks rather. Kind of like a sped up, almost squirrely sound for these very sad emo lyrics, but people, dance into them in pretty fast BPM. And that's been a internet staple for a long time, especially over anime things, or anime abbeys, and girls with cool hair and DJing and spacecrafts or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of ended up back on TikTok as recently as this couple of years ago. I think that's when it was really taking off. But people using that to get around copyright laws for certain songs they wanted to play, or giving songs that had big hits like SZA and Bad Habits by C Blazy are two good examples where they would just speed them up, and then it was the cool vibe, is kind of they would call it. And there's a lot behind it, but what I had kind of touched on in the video is that it had to do a lot with how we, kind of romanticize older songs, and how, we take these older songs and then we want to give it a fresh take, so that's why the slow down, reverbed out effects were so popular. And then also the sped up songs were popular, and, it resulted in some very interesting songs being sped up and slowed down. Pine Grove was the big one from that area, that from that era, that was, this 8-year-old Brooklyn indie rock underground-ish song, just came back, and then the Pine Grove Shuffle happened, and it was like millions of views and hits, and then they released like three different sped up versions of this one song from this band's catalog, of a band that, by the way, wasn't even active at the time. The drummer had just left. Um, they decided to just come back and released it, and did really well on platforms. So, but that was the whole concept of the sped up songs. And I think, like, I don't know, I think remixing and speeding up and slowing down and doing new versions of the same songs is not going to go away at all. I think it might evolve. Like, there might be new things instead of speeding up or slowing down, pitch shifting or reverbed out, or whatever. All of these things ascribe to different aesthetics that are going on in the music at the time. Like, you can imagine something happening with like vaporwave, like a vaporwave version of a song that you might already know,
Yeah.
or maybe a song that's gone viral or something like that. And as we kind of progress there, it'll probably continue, in that kind of direction.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think it is about sped up songs that people seem to like? So there's an interesting idea of like that we sort of consume so much on like TikTok and stuff with scrolling and like Instagram and all these platforms being optimized for watch time, that sort of we're used to receiving more and more information at once. And a sped up song is just another way of doing that, where you can receive sort of more sonic information in a shorter span of time. Do you think that's something like to do with it, or is there more to it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like, I think, a lot of those songs have like a lot of a lot of those songs revolve around their chorus or a certain part of the hook that goes viral, and then that's the part that people want to hear over and over again.
Hmm.
um Especially because of just like the nature of like short form videos, when you're scrolling, and when people really are in like the scrolling, the do scrolling, it's just like scroll, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where it's just like almost very repetitive, and like when you just are able to just hear that little snippet of whatever song that might be, it might make somebody stop scrolling, or might make them listen and then repeat, listen to it again, and then it might refamiliarize, or familiarize themselves further with that, whatever soundbite they're listening to, and then you get kind of stuck on it. It's almost like an earworm in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like it's kind of similar to a lot of, if you sort of ever look into like people sort of giving advice on like how to make good short form content and that kind of stuff. A lot of it will be like, oh, the hook is everything. The hook's so important. You've got to get as much information as you can into that. So I
Yeah,
guess it's kind of an element of like when someone's putting a song to a video, especially a video that doesn't have speech as well, kind of
yeah,
like getting as much of that earworm as you put it into like as short of a space time as you
yeah,
possibly can.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think also, so you mentioned that like Pine Grove released sort of re-released the song with sped up and slowed down
yeah,
versions. And I
yeah,
know Scissor's done that with one of her new releases as well.
yeah.
Why do you think more artists are sort of like actually releasing singles with sped up and slowed down versions already sort of packaged in?
I think it's just because they want a piece of the pie of, like, just the numbers.
Yeah.
I think that they just would rather have control over, you know, whatever might happen, um, in terms of any copyright issues, or just control in general. Like, for example, with the UMG thing, when UMG removed all their sounds, it's a lot easier to remove your sounds if you already have, like, uh, a copyright claim over the sped up song or the slowed down song that you're trying to remove from that platform. So I think it's ultimately just A, for streaming, and B, so that you can do whatever you want with the track if you own it.
Yeah.
uh,
I
yeah,
think that's definitely a big part of it as well. But like, say like a sped up version goes viral on TikTok. If the version that goes, the specific sound that goes viral is your version of the song with TikTok's new features and stuff, you now can sort of click through and click to go to streaming to find the song.
yeah,
Whereas if you sort of leave it and it's someone's own audio that they've made their own version of, then
yeah,
you might you probably still get a lot of traction from it if it goes viral, but you
yeah,
probably won't gain as much attention from it because
yeah,
people, they might not even have your name in it or the song name in it, and then people
yeah.
might find it.
And it's also like a little like streaming trick I'm not sure if you've noticed, but like when people, there's different tricks that you can do on Spotify, especially since it's like the kind of the number one. Um, you might notice that if you listen to a single that's been put out by an artist, and it might be like the third or fourth single in an album, that those might actually all be packaged together. So you might start listening to that single and you forget that you're even playing it, or not forget, but like, it'll get to the end of the song and keep playing. And then you might hear the other three singles by that artist back to back. So it helps with your plays, and also helps to remind the listener who might be like maybe not so savvy on the band that like these songs are all packaged together and going together. So like maybe when you're listening to the Need to Slow Down version, you hit the next one that's like an even slower version. I don't know if that's it, but I'm wondering if maybe people are like, oh my God, it's actually cooler, even slower.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a lot actually in TikTok comments stuff like,
Yeah.
oh, slow. The regular speed version's so bad. I wonder how like the actual like
That's
original.
crazy. But yeah, yeah, I've seen that too.
I mean, you're a musician yourself. Is this something that like if you're an independent artist, should you consider like doing something like this, like releasing, having your new single come out and having, I don't know, song sped up version, song slowed down version as like one package release? Is that something that you would like consider doing yourself, or is that maybe
I don't
something?
know. I mean, I think it depends on like, I wouldn't say a blanket yes or no. I think it depends on like what kind of artist you are, what you're interested in doing with your music. I ascribe a lot to like the idea that like everything that you should do with intention or with a purpose, uh, in the end, like with some kind of strategy in mind for what you want to touch on and what you want to do. And then just keep doing that in the best way that you can. So
Yeah,
like I don't think that it would be fair to just blanket term like, yeah, release every song with a slow down and a sped up version, because as we were talking about before we started filming, that will also hurt your authenticity.
mm,
I think that it would be very easy for artists, for audiences rather, to read into that in the way that like, oh, you just like you really just want the viral moment, huh?
mm,
Which might hurt, how people view you as an artist. Because, in this day and age, nobody wants somebody who's gunning for the viral moment, gunning for it constantly. They want authenticity, and they want, honesty, and they want a vision, like an artistic vision. And if all of that is just viral moment, viral moment, viral moment, I think, it's not going to end well
yeah.
necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's good advice to just live by in general as an artist, to be honest, to not do something if it doesn't feel true to you. Like, I mean, I don't necessarily think chasing the viral moment's a bad thing. Like, I think for someone like SZA, because so many people make sped up versions of her songs anyway,
Yeah.
it's kind of do, jumping the horse before it bolts. Like,
Yeah.
getting ahead of that trend, and so people have the option to, as soon as a song comes out, to use a sped up version on their videos or like listen to the sped up version if that's kind of how they listen to other
Well,
music.
I think that would work so well for SZA, but it's already happened
Yeah.
before for her with like two or three of her songs. And I think her voice kind of, because she does a lot of like cool runs, it has a cool effect when you speed it up.
Mm.
So for something like that, I would say, it's fine. And again, like if it's like a pop artist who maybe could get some kind of, viral move out of it, I think that would work. But for example, if you're like a rock band that's more in like the underground scene, and you release like, your 9 minute epic sped up, it's like that's such a bad look.
Yeah, definitely.
As with everything, it's like there's no blanket thing. And I think the maybe sometimes a mistake that happens with trying to look for like what one can do next is over relying too much on things that are happening now, right? And like trying to recreate that instead of taking away the insights from why that happened and seeing what might happen next, which is kind of what I do, right? Like instead of saying, oh, the reason that this got popular is because it was sped up, is saying something like what we were talking about with why it might have been sped up to begin with. People are processing information faster. Short form video is so popular. It has like a certain nightcore vibe that people were really into. Is that going to happen now again? Probably not, right?
Mm.
Like the next big, in the pop world, the next big hit most recently was Espresso, And the reason that that went mega viral and why that's like number one in the UK is not the same reason that a lot of other songs have been, um, number one recently. So, it's important to like extrapolate the information and the takeaway that you can have rather than trying to mimic it. Because especially, and now, and again, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but, we touched a little bit on, um, audiences being very attuned to, and what was the word that we used?
Savvy, I
Uh,
think.
yeah, audiences being more savvy and more resistant towards the things that feel inauthentic. And especially when it comes to like doing something that's been done before to kind of recreate that fame or that success, that's a big one that turns audiences kind of noses, and kind of has them turning their heads and just being a little curious. They're being like, oh, this seems similar to something I've seen before.
Yeah.
And, is it really this artist or is it really you? So yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it kind of leads perfectly on to what I was going to talk about next, which is sort of the whole idea of that TikTok has become, and Reels as well falls into this category, that a lot of short form video in general has sort of become very formulaic, and that there's this idea of like virality fatigue. Can you sort of, I mean, that's the term that you use. Can you sort of explain what you mean by that?
yeah. I mean, I think that there's a fair amount of people who are doom scrolling and and sick of it. And I think that you hop on the internet and you open your phone, and we're all kind of addicted to our phones and scrolling on the internet. And more so, we're all sick of kind of seeing the same thing. I know people get tired of seeing the same attempts at going viral and the same thing again. Very similar topic. It's there's so many artists trying to recreate something they've seen before in a viral moment or whatever, and it can get tiring to see that over and over and over again. You know, like the big thing a few years ago was like, did I just make the song of the summer? And no shame to those artists. Like I get it. Everyone's trying to promote their stuff, but like, dude, there were so many videos of people talking about the song of the summer. I think by the end of it, everyone was so sick of it. And then it turned into this game where people were just making fun of the people who were saying song of the summer and then just putting out their own like, and it'll happen with other things. Like there's all sorts of parody videos about music promotion that are happening not too long after that kind of promotion starts to get popular with people who are trying to make a living with their music. And I think the reason why I think is because people are very tired of like these viral moments that we've been seeing here and there, and the attempts at recreating those viral moments, um, because they're yearning for something that's more authentic, and they're yearning for something that is more of a more honest connection, that maybe has some elements of, attempting to go not viral, but attempting to be successful and find like an audience,
Mm.
which again is probably more important than actually just getting a million views from people who don't really care, but maybe like that one video is the importance is actually finding your audience online and finding the people who resonate with what you're doing when you're doing it in an authentic way, and then rolling with it, and then like turning those people into fans of your work, and then building relationships with those people, and then kind of building communities around the art that you're making, the work that you're doing, and you know building that in a way that's more organic and more sustainable in the long term. you know
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I think it's difficult because like the way you promote your music nowadays in terms of like building an audience and building an audience online is through short form video. That's just the way that it's gone. But but then you've also got to sort of balance the idea of like that you have to serve the algorithm to some extent and you have to do the things that people clearly engage with. But on the
Mhm.
other hand, if you just follow what people are doing because it's what people engage with, then you sort of lose that authenticity. So like how if you're like an independent artist, how can you sort of strike that balance of like serving the algorithm with videos that are going to reach the people that could turn into fans, but also doing something that's authentic and that the people who are already fans of you are going to enjoy and appreciate.
I think there's no like catch-all answer to this one,
Mm.
unfortunately, as it may be. Like there's no way to be like, oh, all you have to do is this. And many people will sell you and tell you that like, yeah, there is a cat like, you know, pay for my $200 course and I'll
Yeah.
teach you everything you need to go viral. It doesn't work like that, you know? Like nobody really knows how the algorithm works. Nobody really knows how what goes behind powering it. All everybody has is ideas based on data that we're seeing that's already probably a patch or two behind the algorithms that are being used by social media anyway. You know,
Mm.
like for a while, everybody was doing more produced content on TikTok until, you know, we realized months later that, you know, the best thing for TikTok was actually longer form content that was less edited, you know, and that happened like so much later than it actually was changed in the algorithm. So there's no point in trying to appease an algorithm per se, because the way that a lot of these social media algorithms work in general is just by whether or not your content does well with the people it shows it to. And then how does it show it to the right people? I don't know. But I think what it has to do with is like, you know, you're making music that's this kind of style of music, it's going to try to find people that have that kind of style of music, show it to them and see what they think. So
Yeah.
what I've told a few, you know, what I've had conversations with a few artists that I work with and what I've, not like I manage their socials, but maybe I play with them or their colleagues or whatever. And kind of what we've spoken about is, you know, trying to put out, you know, things that again feel authentic and feel like an expansion of like their artistic vision, you know, like maybe for example, like I love like crazy ARG, you know, content. Like I live for like alternate reality gaming videos, like but like the thing that you kind of scroll and you're like, what is this? Is this real? Like why is this so creepy? What's going on? All of that like intrigue gets me 100% of the time.
Mm.
And that's like popular in like YouTube horror, which is, you know, completely tangential to music, but like that is something that, um, you know, in terms of an aesthetic, really, you know, really intrigues me. And if I see a band that kind of uses that aesthetic as a way to promote their music, maybe they're like, I don't know, I don't listen to horrorcore, but what if they're like a horrorcore band and they use like creepy ARG simulated videos to make you like interested in their music? You know, that's gonna be like, oh, this is sick. I like this aesthetic a lot. You know, let's check out their music. But that's like a purposeful way of creating more art and then using that art as a kind of promotion.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that works really well because it like finds audiences for you rather than like hoping that your, you know, POV video with text while you're cooking is gonna like intrigue and enough people that it, you know, gets you somewhere online. I just think that it's all about like really trying to find different ways to use your artistic vision to find the right people who will enjoy your content enough that they will interact with it. Thus, you know, you will get more followers, you will get a higher engagement rate, and then in the end, you'll also find more success. And then they'll kind of give you a little bit more artistic freedom because rather than trying to catch up with the trend that happened a month ago and releasing more videos and feeling like you're drowning in more videos and more videos and more videos, you're like actively putting out stuff that you enjoy making. So rather than it feeling like a chore that you have to do these stupid videos, now it can feel like, oh, this is cool. I like the way this looks. I like the way this feels. I like the way that this complements my music. And then again, back to authenticity, that'll show, you know, the authenticity will show through, you
Yeah.
know,
I
feel
mean,
less fabricated and people will love that.
yeah. I think it's really interesting because I think on the one hand, I think a lot of artists are sort of maybe scared by the idea that like there isn't a formula that you can use to sort of do this process. But I think on the other hand, it's kind of means that if you're an artist, like you have a artistic vision, and it's sort of it seems like at the moment things that sort of explore further into that and that are more creative are starting to do better. But I think one thing that I think is interesting is that it seems to be a bit of a never-ending loop, this kind of thing, because like you have this sort of loop of so when people when the first person to ever make a video that said, "Have I just made the song of the summer?" made their
Yeah.
video, it
Yeah.
was probably it was probably quite a unique idea, and it was like a
Yeah.
really cool
Yeah.
way of like getting people's attention. But then, but then that creativity turned into success, and then that success means that people will repeat the idea, and then you'll get this sort of like virality fatigue that you talk about. And I mean, you
Yeah.
can see stuff like I've seen loads of video. I've seen a couple of videos actually saying similar stuff where it's like, oh, people are sick of like the heavily captioned, really choppy editing style, and people want something more artistic. But then the way that gets repeated is that people do like a really basic color grade and like maybe add some film grain, and then like
Yeah.
it's cinematic, which is
Yeah. The
my least
aesthetic.
favorite words in the entire
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
What does that mean? But anyway,
It doesn't mean anything.
um,
That word
in
is
a,
completely lost all meaning.
but like I suppose the thing is that is there any way out of that loop, or is it just to I think I've kind of answered my own question because I think the way out of that loop is that if you repeat what people are doing, then you're ultimately gonna fall. You're gonna if you keep doing that, you're gonna fall into this like variety fatigue cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
If you're
yeah.
always doing something that's authentic and creative that comes from within you, it might be slower growth because it might not be the sort of trend that people are doing, but it's
Yeah,
something.
but that's more substantial and like that's way more sustainable. Like the
Mm,
fact is that like all I can picture is like somebody like what I was just thinking about as you were, asking this question when you mentioned the Song of the Summer person. I don't know who that is. I have some ideas because I was like looking to find the first one just out of, curiosity. And I think I found it, but I'm not sure. I don't remember her name or anything. But
mm,
this girl in a car just talking about did I make the Song of the Summer or whatever. Um, and I was like, what probably happened to her career if that video did well? Like, she must have seen all of these copies of the thing that she did, and no one's going to remember who the first person was, So now it just looks like, okay, do I look like I'm copying that thing that happened a few years ago? And then how do I keep promoting? Because now you had your big moment, people, there's more eyes on you, and then what do you do? You know, you
yeah,
don't have you most likely don't have a team. You most likely have maybe a manager or like booking agent or something like most artists that are you know on the smaller side. And what do you do? How do you then put the output and the planning required to actually make use of something like that? We've been fed that about how important viral moments are, but I think the follow through after that happens is more important, and that's why I am much more comfortable with artists who don't have like one viral moment where they pop off and then, I'd rather artists that build up a fan base slowly, very like almost meticulously, choosing what they're doing and choosing what is going to do, almost choosing what's going to do well because they have knowledge over what their audience base likes. You
mm,
know, there's an interesting thing too, and this is more on the industry side of this is definitely more on the industry side. But I've been getting some little whispers here and there that a lot of venues are also shying away from artists whose only thing that they have to show that they can sell tickets at is like a TikTok count or an Instagram follower count.
mm,
Uh, there's been a lot of tours or a lot of shows where these people who these artists who maybe have a big song or like a big moment or they have an audio that goes viral or whatever, gain a lot of followers, gain a lot of viral hits, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of plays or views on all their videos, announce a tour. The tour announcement does really well. They're playing in 10 cities, all over the US or even the UK, or whenever, wherever. And they go, tickets aren't selling that well. They were expecting it. They're like, all right, we'll just keep putting out videos. Guys, don't forget that I'm going on tour. Guys, don't forget. Uh, and then the tour comes around, and they've sold maybe 25% of the tickets pre-sales at all of the locations that they're playing at. And then the management, well, the booking company is looking at it, and they're concerned that it might be a loss. They show up to play these big rooms, 600, 500, 600 cap rooms, and they're not looking very full. Um, and they just struggle to sell tickets, and they struggle getting all of the popularity that's online offline. You know,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think
it's been a thing for a while for sure. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, there's a band that comes to mind locally that I won't obviously name, but like that have that have had like a few viral moments on TikTok and have like built a bit of an audience there, and
yeah,
they don't sell out like 200 cap rooms in
yeah,
the hometown because it's sort of it's there's a big difference between online and offline. And we were talking about this before we started recording actually, that like the follow and the subscribe and the like, it doesn't mean what it meant 10 years ago. It's almost like if it was a currency, it's like depreciated in value.
yeah, 100
Like
percent.
because platforms are so much more oriented towards watch time now, especially TikTok is like the main example, right?
Yeah,
TikTok, if you watch a video, like, this is so true. If there's like a friend, you have like a friend who's in a band that isn't really your type of thing, but you'll follow them because you want to support them, right?
yeah,
You'll follow them, but when you see their video, you'll scroll past it. And after the first day you follow them, you'll never see their videos again
yeah,
because it's not based on the follow account. It's based on
yeah.
that. So say you go viral with like by doing a trend that's outside of music or maybe something that does incorporate your music as well, but it's sort of like a big viral moment. You can gain thousands of followers and gain nothing in sort of real fans that like actually want to sort of come to your shows or like buy your
Yeah,
merch.
it means very little. Yeah, yeah. But that's the thing though, is like there's so many different ways. That's why purely looking at just like the counts, and I think everybody's hip to it in the industry. Like I think that just purely looking at counts and like whatever viral videos you have is pointless now. And like everyone's kind of over it, on the industry side as well as slowly on the audience side. Um, Everyone's kind of understood that like this doesn't really mean anything. Like it's not a tangible way of actually counting how many tickets you can sell or where you can play or how many fans you even have. It just means it's a snapshot of what might have happened at one point, and whether or not that one point is like we've said so many times, but one viral video, or if it's like months and months of work and creating art for, that audience that is gonna, be essentially super fans for you. Those are two very different things, and they're very hard to quantify. There's this one band that I will name because I think that they are amazing. Um, but there's this band called the Telescreens here in New York, and if you look up their socials or their like listener count on Spotify or Instagram. It's nothing crazy. Like they have, I don't know. I can't name it off the top of my head, but that, you might look and be like, oh, cool, maybe like it's a cool local act or whatever. But then, they sell out Bowery Ballroom every time they play, and that's like I think it's 600, 700 cab room. So it's like, what's going on here? And then there might be like, viral band number 627 that comes through New York and is like, oh yeah, we can sell Bowery Baller. I'm like, that's an easy room, whatever. And they go and they're like barely 250 tickets sold, even with local support. So it's like it's so hard. But the lesson, like to me, the lesson is clear as day, which is like you can use social media as a tool, as one of the tools in your toolbox as an artist to promote your music, but don't live or die by social media. You have to find your audience that's been a part of music since day one. You have to use your creative vision as a part of how you're promoting your music and expanding on that in general. These are very simple tenets that have been a part of music for, since the modern era of music,
Mm.
and they're not changing. They're just kind of adapting, and people are getting more tools, and uh, you know, fundamentally there's no change, but obviously around it there's change everywhere. Um, yeah, and I think the over reliance on social media has been a burden for artists, and I think it's been a burden for fans, and nobody likes it. Nobody's enjoying making content that they think will go viral for the most part. They don't like it. I'm sure everybody would rather be doing things that they like to do rather than being like, all right, well now I have to do this dance video to hope that I can get more followers. Nobody likes it.
Mm.
It's so I'm hoping there's some change, especially with the TikTok announcement in the US. I think that's going to shake up a lot of the industry side on the promotional side, because I do know that a lot of, not a lot, but there's a fair amount of music promotion strategy that's essentially boiled down to make viral videos. And that's not a strategy, right? That
Yeah.
is a crapshoot. And it's, a guess, it's playing the lottery. So I'm hoping that with the change now, I think there'll be a little bit of change in how management companies or artist management kind of reshape the way that they think about promoting music online and what they think about social media.